Did all the ladies get a butterfly? Okay, when not, I'll bring it to you. You got it? Oh, good. Let's hold them up. Let's see them. Some of them have these little pins, so we'll get back to these later. Happy Mother's Day. My mom is here, right? There's my mom. Love you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. And, I don't have many moms in this room, but that's the biological one. So, some of you may have seen the news clip a couple of weeks ago. There was a press conference with Doc Rivers, who's the head coach of the Los Angeles Clippers basketball team. And it was a tough press conference because he had just lost the two best players on his team, Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, to injury. And so there's a reporter, and he asked Rivers the question, when you're in tough times like this, who do you lean on? Who do you turn to? And Rivers probably didn't want to talk about that at all. So he said, I don't know, and he kept going answering questions. But as he started to well up, and tears started to fill his eyes, and he had to pause, he had to stop. And he said, I have to go back to that first question, and why I'm crying right now is that it made me think that the answer to that question is my mom. That she would be that person. And it was just a short but beautiful presentation of how important and valuable that mother-child relationship is. There's an important relationship between human mom and human child, but I think there's also, even deeper than that, something at the core that's a spiritual relationship. There's mom and child, but there's also Mother Nature and child of the earth. There's also Mother God and child of God. Each of us, in a sense, grows and deepens based upon our ability to connect with someone's greater belief in who we are and who we can be. And when we ground ourselves in that, we experience great transformation on the road and path of our discovery and of our becoming. I know that our human lives happen chronologically, that they have a beginning and an end and then a whooshing in between. But our spiritual lives, to me, are really a process of believing and becoming. They're a process of imagination coming into form. When we allow ourselves to believe something greater about ourselves or what can be in our lives, a greater becoming takes place. And when a greater becoming takes place, the beliefs that we need to rise up and meet that becoming come to us in an incredible way. And I know we healthy minds, us positive thinkers, we believe that if you believe great things, they can happen. But it's so important that we never forget that the most important process on the road of our becoming is that presence that believes in you. That presence that knows who you are. That presence that believes you are capable of amazing things. In our philosophy, we call it God, but we might as well just call it Mom, right? Whether your mom fully embodied all that it means to be a mom, or if she fell short, it doesn't matter. We honor all of those presences in your life that believed in you and held a greater vision for you, maybe when you couldn't even hold it for yourself, that you were able to step into. Mother Teresa, who of course created many homes and did so much charity to help the poor. She and her sisters had started a new home, and she met a little girl that was on the streets begging for food, and she decided to bring her into the home where there was food, other kids to play with, toys, TV, all of it. And when the sisters go out to find children to help feed them in the mornings, they always say a prayer written by John Henry Newman. It goes like this. Dear Lord, help me to spread your fragrance wherever I go. Flood my soul with your spirit and life. Penetrate to possess my whole being so utterly that all my life may only be a radiance of yours. Shine through me and be so in me that every soul I come in contact with may feel your presence in my soul. Let them look up and see no longer me, but only you, O Lord. Stay with me, then I shall begin to shine as you do, so to shine as to be a light to others. The light, O Lord, will be all from you. None of it will be mine. It will be you shining on others through me. Let me thus praise you in the way you love best, by shining on those around me. Let me preach you without preaching, not by words but by my example, by the catching force, the sympathetic influence of what I do, the evident fullness of the love my heart bears to you. Amen. Pretty good way to start your day with your Wheaties, right? And so Mother Teresa discovered this girl and brought her to the house where there was food and games and fun, but the little girl never seemed happy. She was always frowning and she was always running away. And so the sisters would go out and find her and bring her back. And one day Mother Teresa asked one of the sisters to follow her to find out where it was that she was going. And she did, and she came back to report to Mother Teresa that the little girl was going off the beaten path to be with a woman who was living under a tree. And the woman under the tree had 2 little stoves where she created a little cooking station where she would feed the young girl. And so Mother Teresa went to find her there, and the first thing that she noticed about the little girl is she was smiling. And she said, "Little girl, why do you keep running away?" "I need to be with my mother," the little girl said. "She loves me." And I think for Mother Teresa it was a powerful reminder of the power of family in your life. But I also think for me, there's a spiritual metaphor about being close with the Spirit. That in our lives we may create an abundance of food for ourselves, an abundance of wealth. We may have a lot of friends, we may have a lot of stuff, we may have a lot of TVs, iPods, iPads, and whatever it is next around us. But nothing can fill that space like the presence of motherly love, like that presence of transformation, that presence that we can plant ourselves in and trust that by doing so, we don't know how it will work, but that we will grow and become stronger and even more who we were meant to be because of doing that. Now, I know sharing all these metaphors, there might be 1 or 2 in you who would prefer to get as far away from your mom as possible. That may have struggles with mom. But again, you have to seek deeper to see the metaphor that I'm talking about, that moms are the best representation of this divine feminine way of nurturing us, but they're not the only manifestation of it either. I do recall in my first year of ministry here, we had a book study and the topic of spiritualism came up. And spiritualism is that belief that you can talk to people after they're dead, John Edwards and Sylvia Brown and all those folks. And I don't know who believes that they can do that here. Rick, you might want to ask that person sitting next to you there to your left. They didn't work the first service either. But one of the women in the class, she began to share that what I would like more than anything is to be able to hear and speak to my mother again, which is such a beautiful sentiment. Her mom had passed away. And just then another woman piped in from the group. She said, "My mom died 15 years ago, and I still can't get her to leave me alone." And I always like that balance of how we communicate. Our book of the month this month is Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and we shared a little bit about it last week. It's a great book about a seagull who longs to fly into his greatness. And the rest of the flock sometimes puts him down. They don't want him to follow his own path, but he should be like everybody else. And as we share, we were so blessed with the donation of 1,000 of these books by Larry Carter and family. And so please know if you're interested in this book, there's a copy for you on your way out, and take one for a friend too. There's a little advertisement for the church in here as well. But this is where the book begins. It says, "It was morning, and the new sun sparkled gold across the ripples of a gentle sea. A mile from shore, a fishing boat chummed the water, and the word for breakfast flock flashed through the air, till a crowd of 1,000 seagulls came to dodge and fight for bits of food. It was another busy day beginning, but way off alone, out by himself beyond boat and shore, Jonathan Livingston Seagull was practicing. 100 feet in the sky, he lowered his webbed feet, lifted his beak, and strained to hold a painful, hard, twisting curve through his wings. The curve meant that he would fly slowly, and now he slowed until the wind was a whisper in his face, until the ocean stood still beneath him. He narrowed his eyes in fierce concentration, held his breath, forced one single more inch of curve, Then his feathers ruffled, he stalled and fell. Seagulls, as you know, never falter, never stall. To stall in the air is for them disgrace, and it is dishonor. But Jonathan Livingston Seagull, unashamed, stretching his wings again in the trembling hard curve, slowing, and stalling once more, was no ordinary bird. "Why, John, why?" his mother asked. "Why is it so hard to be like the rest of the flock, John? Why can't you leave low, flying to the pelicans, the albatross? Why don't you eat? Son, you're bone and feathers." "I don't mind being bone and feathers, Mom. I just want to know what I can do in the air and what I can't. That's all. I just want to know." I like this because it speaks to that motherly challenge, because as mothers, that mistake can be made sometimes of wanting to protect your child, and so to teach them to be part of the flock, to fit in, to go along with things. But there's that mother intuition that knows too that you might be the first one that your child realizes and expresses their unique gift to. And when they do, it's up to you to intuitively know and hold that space for their uniqueness and their growth. It's one of the most amazing things that I see moms do. It's something that my mom here today did for me. So she thought it might be a little weird that Josh started going to the weird church that she had never heard of, and wanted to take more and more classes there and less in regular school. And she did want to guide, and she did want to give advice, but she also knew to trust, because that's probably the greatest gift our moms or motherly presences can give to us, is that trust, that space to bring forth the best in ourselves so we can learn to express it in unique and powerful ways. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's a powerful thing to do. For as moms, all the moms here and any of us who can become mom-like, the Buddha said we're all mothers, I've been told, that we are the symbols of that transformational energy. That energy that is just like how that caterpillar becomes these butterflies here. And that's why we passed out these butterflies today, is because every woman got one, and there's probably a few extra if you guys want one too. Put this somewhere and remember your role in the transformation of the people that love you around you. One of my favorite things that this church has done in the last year is we've created outside in the garden here a monarch butterfly sanctuary. How many people do that? Or you see it when you come in, all the cool caterpillars and butterflies. And is Bob Papp here? There he is. Stand up, Bob. Bob's nickname to me is sometimes God, because he's out there creating all of this life around there very happily. And I want to thank all the people who helped him and all the members of our garden team. If you help with the garden, will you raise your hand and help with this project? It's really awesome because the monarch butterfly's habitat has been being destroyed all over the world. And so to create one here is really cool. And to me, it's an altar to spiritual transformation. One of the central things we teach in our teaching is that when you put a seed into the ground, the soil begins to work on it. We don't necessarily know how it works, but we know that it works. When the caterpillar goes and comes into its larvae stage and is built, someone did correct me, they do know some of this, but for the most part, we have no idea how it's transforming and becoming that butterfly. And in the same way, when it comes to the seed of our soul, when we plant it into the soil of possibility, we don't know how it will produce us into the individuals we will become, but we trust. And that's what mom is to me. It's a space. It's a consciousness. Mom is a soil in which we plant ourselves and grow in that love, grow in that support. So the more moms you have, the better. The more contributing to that, the better. And as moms, or as each of us being the ability to become a mom-like person in our lives, we can contribute to that energy and that life for others. Because as many of us know, transformation is not always a pretty process, is it? Last Saturday morning, I was standing outside the door and grieving the loss of my friend John, and then out of the sky, it seemed like they dropped from about 40 feet in the air, came down, splat, 2 of these monarch butterflies. And I immediately turned my head because I had enough thoughts of ferociousness and viciousness for one day. I did not want to see what was going down, but I couldn't help but look, and it was like they were fighting. There was this battle taking place. And I looked a little closer, and I looked a little closer, and I realized they weren't battling at all. They were doing it. They were making love. And it reminds us of it reminds me sometimes of our loved ones. From the outside, it might seem like it's great chaos that's taking place. That it's so much of tumultuousness, if that's a word, and pretty awful to watch. And I'm not trying to say that there aren't incredibly difficult things that those we love have to go through. But if we remember and keep looking, we remember that little soul that's attached itself to an idea, to an imagination, to a possibility of its becoming. If we keep believing in it, it will keep becoming. We don't know how it works, but we know that it works, and we commit to holding that together. I think as it says in Jonathan Livingston Seagull, when he figures it out and figures out his path of flight, he says, "How much more there is now to living. Instead of our drab slogging forth and back to the fishing boats, there's a reason to life. We can lift ourselves out of ignorance. We can find ourselves as creatures of excellence and intelligence and skill. We can be free. We can learn to fly." It's so important to be a good mother in our lives, and yet we have to watch out that we're not being too good of smothers. Because there's mothers, and then there's smothers. There's a reason that the words are so similar to one another. And for those who are contributing to that presence of transformation, we have to be more motherly and a little less smotherly. A good mother is one who holds space for their child, but doesn't hold on to them. A good mother is someone who nurtures possibilities for someone, but doesn't force their child into them. A good mother is someone who unconditionally loves and is fully available for support, yet holds no nonsense either, and is willing to be clear and use tough love when needed. A good smother is someone who holds on to their child for dear life, who sees their child only as an extension of themselves and how they can serve them, who would much rather hold them back than let them go out of the nest and learn who they are. I know a lot about smothers because I am a bit of a smother. I can find that. I live with an awesome mom named April. We have an awesome child named Gavin, and I want to smother that kid. I haven't learned this thing where they grow up. That doesn't work for me. You're supposed to stay young because it helps me out. It makes me happy. It helps me learn my lessons. So I don't trust in this growing older part. But his mom is different, and his mom loves him so much. I actually believe this. It sounds crazy, but I actually believe that she lets him grow up. That she actually allows it to take place. And if she said stop, it actually would stop because there's such a divine connection there. But it's amazing to see how she just holds the space. Holding everything without touching anything. You know what I mean when I say that? She holds it, but she doesn't smother it. And so this kid continues to grow in his possibilities and who he can be in a way that his mom trusts and continues to express. I'm reminded of that story in that great old book, Zorba the Greek, which says, "One morning, I discovered a cocoon in the bark of a tree, just as the butterfly was making a hole in the case, preparing to come out. I waited a while, but it was too long appearing, and I was impatient. I bent over it and breathed on it to warm it. I warmed it as quickly as I could, and the miracle began to happen before my eyes, faster than life. The case opened. The butterfly started slowly crawling out, and I shall never forget my horror when I saw how its wings were folded back and crumpled. The wretched butterfly tried with its whole body to unfold them. Bending over it, I tried to help it with my breath, in vain. It needed to be hatched out patiently, and the unfolding of the wings should be a gradual process in the sun. Now it was too late. My breath had forced the butterfly to appear all crumpled before its time. It struggled desperately, and a few seconds later died in the palm of my hand. That little body is, I do believe, the greatest weight I have on my conscience, for I realize today that it is a mortal sin to violate the great laws of nature. We should not hurry, We should not be impatient, but we should confidently obey the eternal rhythm. This man could have learned a lot from his mother. And motherhood really is a science. It's the most challenging, complex, and mysterious of all the sciences. How to care not just for a little body, but for an enormous soul. To create space for it to become and to learn to believe its way and its nature. I've come through the learning of rock and roll music to learn that there's 3 ways to approach life. And I want to thank Keith Watanabe because he helped me with this. So you're going to have one of 3 anthems. The first is Hold On. That's symbolized by that great Wilson Phillips song. Remember that? I'd sing it to you, but you don't want me to. And a lot of people, they live by this philosophy of hold on. Life is about holding on to everything as long as you can. Damage control. Don't let anything go. And this can work for a long time, but ultimately it's a futile venture, isn't it? Because eventually you're going to have to let go, or everything's going to let go of you. And it's often in holding on that we hurt and crumple the wings of some of those whom we love around us. So that's one way of going about living your life. The other is the let it go philosophy. You know that song, don't you? That's the Frozen song. There you go. We'll have you sing it next week. We'll get you a Brazilian quartet. It'll be great. This let it go philosophy, that's where the Buddha comes from. Let everything go. If you're attached to anything, you're going to suffer. It's going to sour you. It's going to be really difficult. And I think his philosophy is a very wise one for the independent being, especially if you want to shave your head and go sit on a mountaintop somewhere. But in my experience, if you want to live in the fullness of life, you're going to get attached. You're going to want to love people so much that it's okay if it leaves a scar. You're going to want to focus on living fully in the joys and the sorrows of the world. So if you're only letting everything go, you're missing out on the fun. You're missing out on the meaning and the purpose. And maybe you'll find Godhead, and that's fine. If you're into enlightenment, you go for it. But I'd rather have lunch with my parents and hang out and watch some good TV and stuff like that too. And so life's going to get hard sometimes. So if I'm letting everything go, I'm not letting things touch me at that heart level at times. And that's why I like the third anthem the most, which is my favorite Mother's Day song, and that's Let It Be by the Beatles. And I love this philosophy of let it be. Let it become. And holding on is about clinging to things, and letting go is about pushing everything away. Letting it be is about being present with everything that's important to you in your life, but without the need to control it, manage it, or make it work out the way you think you ought to. To let it be means you're willing to let things become. And when I've had the wisdom to let things become in my life, what I've found, not only do they become what they should be, but often what in my heart of hearts I really wanted them to be, but perhaps couldn't even have the imagination to contain or articulate it. And that to me is the great action of Mother Mary in the song, that ability to let it be, to let it become. And so I'm going to invite our band up here and our singer, but as they come up here, just invite us to move into a moment of prayer, to think of an area in our life where we may be holding on too tightly or letting go too often, to allow ourselves just to consider that wisdom of allowing things to become. We can think of areas outside of our lives, but maybe we can think of areas in our inner life as well. Parts of ourselves, our thinking, our beliefs, our heart, all sorts of aspects of ourselves that if we just let be, will become in alignment with that transformative feminine power that facilitated our physical birth, but facilitates our spiritual awakening and rebirth as well. May we honor all of those presences of Mom in our life, recognizing that they are eternally present. The gifts of past and future continue to give themselves to us, but ultimately it is right here and right now that love always has been and love always will be. May we receive it now, seize it now, this moment of our believing, this moment of our becoming.
me.